The movie begins as we see 8 candidates getting ready for a hiring exam to get a profitable corporate job. All of them feel nervous as they finally enter the examination hall, which is a mild dark room having desks for each candidate. It also has cameras to monitor their activities. As the candidates take their seats, a guard with a gun enters the room, making the candidates nervous. Another man comes who doesn't tell them his name but simply introduces himself as the invigilator, and then apologizes to them for the hardships they have faced in order to get here. This reveals that these 8 candidates are the finalists. And if they pass this last test, they will get their dream jobs. He further explains that no federal rule applies inside the examination hall. The only rule they have to follow is the examination rule, which says that they are not allowed to communicate with the guard or the invigilator. Also that if they ruin the paper intentionally or by accident, or if they walk out of the room for any reason, they will be simply disqualified. They will have 80 minutes to complete the test, and there is only one question on the paper they need to answer. He then asks if they have any questions. When no one answers, he wishes them luck, starts the timer, and leaves. The candidates turn their papers around and see that it is completely blank. All of them look at each other in confusion. As time passes, they become more nervous, so candidate number 2 starts writing on her paper why she thinks she is eligible for the job. The camera inside the room zooms into her paper and the guard is told to throw her out because she ruined her paper. She begs for a second chance but the guard simply closes the door on her. Later, number 5 realizes that the rule says they cannot talk to the guard or the invigilator, which means that they can talk to each other. He tells others the same thing, and convinces them to work together to find the question and finally the answer. They discuss several ways they can pass the test, but are still confused. Throughout this, candidate number 1 doesn't speak at all. A candidate tries to introduce himself but number 5 suggests they should give each other pet names so they wouldn't have to reveal their true identity. He names candidate number 1 Deaf because he hasn't spoken yet. Then the guys are named Brown, Black, and White, according to their races, and the girls are named Blonde, Brunette, and Dark, based on their hair colors. After this, White suggests they should get up from their seats, because there is no rule that says they cannot. He takes a chance and gets up, and surprisingly, nothing happens, meaning that they can move around freely. Brunette believes that the question might be written with invisible ink. They all agree with this, but they don't know how to test this, so Brunette gets up and uses the light in the room to see if there is anything written on the paper, but nothing is visible, so she insists everyone to check their own, because the question could be in just one of them. Everyone does as she says, except for Deaf who is still sitting quiet. But White takes his paper and checks it in the light, and when they find nothing, Black suggests that the question might be visible in UV rays or X-rays, so they all look for a switchboard to turn on other kinds of lights, and when they do not find one, they start to look for the source of such light themselves. And still, Deaf doesn't help them at all. Blonde finds strips of emergency lights in the room, but since there are no switches, they have to break all other lights in the room to create an emergency and trigger the emergency lights to turn on. But Brown is against this, saying they cannot take this risk, so they vote on this and eventually decides to do it. After breaking all the lights, the emergency lights turns on, and the room glows blue. Everyone checks in the light for the question, except for Deaf, but they are still not able to see the question. Brunette asks everyone to remove the first layer of the strip light because they are not lit, and this might give rise to UV rays which can help them. They use heels to break the strips and reveal another form of light. But again, nothing appears on the paper. Only 60 minutes are left. A frustrated White picks up the paper of candidate number 2 saying they can do anything with this paper since she's already disqualified. They try tracing the paper with a pencil, but it doesn't work. Then White tears the paper into many parts so all of them can try different methods, and he even goes as far as peeing on the paper to see if anything appears on it. But this doesn't work either. Black and White gets into an argument over this, but then, they hear Deaf crying. He sobs silently, while others watch him in confusion. He says something in French, that only Dark understands. Deaf is saying that the paper reflects their own image. They ignore him and starts discussing again. Brown comes up with a theory, saying that they are not in an exam, but are in some kind of betting show. The board members have placed their bets on who will crack under pressure, and they are here only for their entertainment. Brunette thinks that the board members probably have some better things to do than this, but according to Brown, money is not what they want. They probably have a lot of money already, now all they want is entertainment. Everyone comes up with their own ideas. Some say that the invigilator might be behind all of this, while others says it might be the CEO. They begin to crack under pressure and insult each other, but then, Dark reveals that there is no one else watching them instead of the CEO, as the CEO has all the powers and control. Brown asks how she know this much about the company, so Dark reveals that she was already working for the company as HR, but has never seen the CEO. She applied for a higher job, so now she is here. White then reveals that he was directly approached and offered the job, while others say that they applied for it. But one thing is common between all of them, is that they don't know anything about the company or how it works, because they were told not to ask any questions. Dark reveals that they are applying for a multi-million-dollar pharmaceutical company named Barag. A few years ago, when a pandemic spread among young people of the world, Barag was the first company to find a cure for it. Currently, their yearly turnover is over $20 billion, all because of their CEO. Black thinks that the company might have found the cure to the newest deadly disease that has been killing millions around the world. Brunette becomes curious and asks more about it. This makes White suspicious, so he asks if Brunette is infected by the same disease. Brunette says she isn't and changes the topic. She then approaches the guard and brings a lighter out of his pocket without talking to him. She is planning to use the lighter to trigger the fire alarm, as water might make the question visible, so for this, she gets on top of a chair, but doesn't reach the fire alarm. White hands her a rolled up piece of paper. She lights it up and uses it to trigger the fire alarm. Water starts showering, but nothing appears on the paper. Suddenly, the guard comes up to Brunette. She unfolds the burned paper and it turns out it was her own. White had betrayed her. She is thrown out as she calls White a bastard. But this enrages Black. He comes up to White saying he will punch his lights out. This makes the lights go out. They figure out that the room is voice activated, so they have to be careful with their words. Def starts to cry again. White sits in front of him and forces him to tear and eat his own paper, so the guard approaches Def and sends him out as well. Now only 5 candidates are left. Black calls White an awful person for doing this, but White says they should thank him for making the competition easier for them, and also claims that he knows what the question is, but refuses to tell the others. This enrages Black and he knocks him out with a single punch. They tie him to a seat and covers his mouth with a tie. After a while, White gains consciousness and asks for his medications, revealing that he is infected with the deadly disease and needs medicine every hour to stay alive, and so Black searches for pills in his pocket, but doesn't find one. Dark says that White is just making excuses for them to free him. But White explains that one of them has stolen his pills and offers to tell them what the question is if they give it back. Soon, White again loses consciousness and begins to tremble. Some believes he is faking it, but Black thinks he is having a seizure because of the disease, so they all start looking for the pill they were talking about, but can't find it, and with only 15 minutes left, they check each other for the pills, but Dark suspects Brown for taking it. It turns out she was right, when she finds the pill stuck to a chewing gum under his table. She tries to feed it to White, but Brown throws it into a vent. As the others try to get it out, a worried Dark goes in front of the camera and asks the invigilator to save the man, but since she talked to the invigilator, she is disqualified. Afterwards, Blonde brings the pill out with a bobby pin and saves White's life. She unties him after this, and as he recovers, they ask him to tell them about the question. White reveals that the answers are the candidates themselves. There is no question, but the one candidate who is left at the end is the answer. All of them believes him, but then, White runs towards the guard to get his gun. Black pushes him aside and acquires the gun himself. He points it at White, but White is confident that Black will never shoot anyone, so he attacks Black and gets the gun. However, he realizes the gun works on fingerprint, so White uses the guard and points the gun at others. He forces them to walk out of the room on their own, so he can win the position. Brown simply walks out fearing his death. A scared Blonde slowly walks out, but yells lights out at the end. The room goes completely dark. White shoots in random directions, and when he turns on the lights, he realizes he shot Black on his chest. White then notices that Blonde still has a foot inside the room. He is about to shoot her as well, but notices that the timer has stopped. So now, he walks up to the camera and tells the invigilator that he is the winner of the competition, but the guard approaches him and shows him the time. White is shocked to see that 22 seconds were still left, and since he talked to the invigilator, he is now disqualified. It is then revealed that when they were all busy in discussion, Def got up and reversed the timer by few seconds. So at last, the only candidate left is Blonde. She walks into the room and picks up Def's glasses, that had fallen while he was being taken out, and using the glasses, she looks at the paper, and sees question number 1. But to her surprise, Def enters the room revealing that he is the CEO of this company, and was in the test to keep an eye on everyone. Blonde walks up to them and says, "No." The invigilator and CEO smiles as they realize that Blonde has finally found the question in the answer to. It turns out when the invigilator asked them if they had any questions at the beginning, this was the only question they had to answer. The whole exam was set to test the candidates' intelligence and attentiveness. They hire Blonde as the CEO's secretary, but she doesn't accept the job because she doesn't want to work for a company that kills people. The invigilator reveals that Black isn't really dead, and that the bullet he got hit with is a capsule that heals the wound after penetrating the body, and it is the magical medicine they have recently manufactured which can cure any disease in the world. In the final scene, Blonde accepts the job as she shakes hands with the CEO. This is where the movie ends. Subscribe to the channel if you love movies, like and share the video, we appreciate it. See you again.